When I started this channel 5 years ago, one of my intentions was to demystify the translation process to anime fans. I wanted to show everyone what exactly went into a translation. From the linguistic mechanics of it, to a translator's creativity and love for a series, to keeping the fans in mind, to the commercial requirements and deadlines we have to adhere to. And I think overall I've done a pretty good job helping anime fans peek behind the curtain. And anime fans, overall, are generally nice people who are happy to learn more about what goes into making the anime they love. The rise of industry-centric anime channels like Kanapa Effect and Cartoon Cypher are proof of this. But whenever translation discourse with a capital D emerges in online spaces, it's clear there's still one element of translation that many fans still don't understand. For all our long threads on translation theory, all our breakdowns of what specific Japanese words mean, for all our talk of authorial intent and character voice and subtitle length limitations and deadlines and everything else under the tip of that giant iceberg that is entertainment translation, fans still take issue with how certain lines are translated, how certain characters are written, which slang words are used, and how localized, whatever that means, our translations are. Then suddenly, a couple weeks ago, a fellow translator tweeted something very profound.
Why didn't the translator translate this line like this? The answer is honestly much simpler than you think. With all due respect, it's because they aren't you.
Well, fuck me. Way to sum up in 3 words everything I've been trying to say for the last 5 years on this channel. Well, guess my work here is done. Catch me over on my cooking channel, I guess. What am I gonna do with all these wigs? They aren't you. A deceptively simplistic and seemingly obvious statement about the relationship between translators and their fans that really sums up beautifully everything we've been trying to say all these years.
What you think a line or character should sound like versus what the translator thought they should sound like may be different, but it doesn't mean it's objectively wrong. Subjectively, you might disagree, but it doesn't mean that the translator wasn't thinking about character voices. That is one of the most important things to consider when translating dialogue in fictional works. People may disagree with some of my word choices, and that's fine. I still believe that I always do my best to reflect what is being said in Japanese into English, and I believe that my colleagues do the same and care just as much. Translation is indeed an art, meaning there usually isn't just one way to translate something. We all won't use the same wording, but as long as it reflects what the original language was trying to get across, it should be fine.
We often get derailed by debates with a vocal minority of bad faith fans who assume translators are phonies who don't actually understand Japanese, or that we hate anime and want to destroy it, or that we're all secretly a big cabal of man-hating, devil-worshipping commies who want to use anime subtitles as a conduit for anti-Western, Marxist, vegan propaganda. And besides making us sound much cooler than we actually are, bad faith fans like this are really detrimental to the discourse, and I'm starting to think it's not even productive anymore to engage with them and try to prove them wrong with facts and logic. I'd rather not meet them where they are and waste all my breath trying to prove to them that I do know Japanese, I do care about my job and the fans, and I'm not trying to push any sort of leftist agenda. Well, not in my translations at least. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that all translators are good faith actors who really do have a solid knowledge of Japanese and English, who really do care about the things they translate, who really do care about the fans, and who really aren't trying to push an agenda with their translations. And let's assume that creative translation is an art, and that it isn't a one-to-one mechanical process that has a concrete right or wrong answer. I know, pretty radical, hard to believe assertions, but just imagine a hypothetical world where everything I just said is true. Even in this world where all anime translators are skilled and care about their work, due to the nature of language, how one sentiment can be expressed in a multitude of ways, 2 translators translating the same anime will produce very different results. Everyone's lived experiences are different. Everyone's experience with language is different. One word may sound cool and natural to one translator, and it may sound cringy and awkward to another. How many authors have you read in your native language who used prose that you didn't like, who used prose that resonated with you? How many love songs have you heard in your life? How many times have you basically heard the same lyric but expressed in different ways? When did it resonate with you and when did it not? Does it sound strange to you when an anime character says he's going to confess to his crush? The wording sounds very unnatural to me, and I know exactly where it comes from. Overly literal translations of the Japanese verb kokuhaku in anime subtitles throughout the last 30 years or so. I'm tempted to segue here into a long lecture breaking down the word kokuhaku and explaining why confess is a bad translation, and that words like jihaku and hakujo are actually closer equivalents to the English word confess, and that to broader audiences, the word confess on its own makes people think of confessing to a crime, not confessing your love to your crush. But to many anime fans who've watched a lot of subtitled anime where the word kokuhaku was translated as confess, and to the many anime fans who have now come to associate the word confess with telling one's crush that you love them for the first time, and to the 19% of my own followers who think the word confess in love scenes sounds perfectly natural, my points are moot. They aren't me. Their understanding of the word confess is different from mine. When I hear the phrase, Hiroyuki confessed to Sachiko yesterday and she said, I'm sorry, I cringe and think, wow, what a horrible translation of what should have been. Hiroyuki asked Sachiko out yesterday and she said no. But when 19% of my followers hear the phrase, they think, aw, poor Hiroyuki, I hope he gets his groove back by episode 10. You aren't me. What are your feelings on the word moist? I'm sure a good number of you winced when I said it just now. Moist, moist, moist. I actually really like the word moist. When I hear it, I think of a juicy roast chicken or a gooey chocolate brownie warm from the oven, or the rejuvenating feel of cool autumn mist in the air after a scorching dry summer. Something along the lines of,
the moist autumn air hydrates my skin.
That sounded just fine to me as an opening line to a poem, but perhaps you might prefer,
my skin drinks in the dewy autumn air.
Or maybe you would prefer this wording,
fall's humidity quenches my skin's thirst.
Or if that's not your style, perhaps,
my parched skin receives the damp autumn breeze.
It all means the same thing. But the line you think is best might not be everyone else's favorite, just like the word choices a translator thought were best might not be your favorite. They aren't you. How you interpret words, how you interpret characters, how you interpret stories. All your impressions, all your feelings are unique to you and aren't in line with the authors, the animators, the voice actors, the translators.
They aren't you.
So it's only natural that you would sometimes disagree with the way a line of anime dialogue is translated, that you would dislike a word that was used. You experience words and language differently than the translator.
They aren't you.
Does this mean you're wrong? No. Does this mean they're wrong? No. But until someone invents a way to connect brains directly to each other so Oda Eiichiro can simply zap the story of One Piece directly from his brain to ours, he needs words, paper, and pens to tell his stories. We need anime studios, directors, animators, voice actors to bring his stories to life on the screen. And, unless you understand Japanese, you need translators, letterers, editors, dubbing teams to help you understand his stories. It's not perfect, but it's what we've got. Let's try to appreciate it for what it is and not for what we think it should be. Big thanks to Neil from The Liberal Cook and Jess for lending their pretty voices to this video. I've linked their lovely channels below. And an even bigger thanks to Michelle for letting me riff on her tweet. Go follow her if you're interested in translation musings or the Idolish 7 franchise. And the biggest thanks of all to my patrons for giving me money every month so that I can make these videos instead of get a second job at Target or something. And in case there was any confusion, no, I'm not quitting this channel. That was a bit, a joke. I'm a very funny person. Bye! Moist.